Spanda Karika Verse 24. Tam arshityo urdhva margena chandra surya prabhavapi Sushumne dvanyastamito hitva brahmanda gocharam. Let us listen carefully. Taking refuge in that state and moving upward to the higher path, the moon and the sun become absorbed in the path of Sushumna, transcending the ordinary field of experience. The verse continues the journey that began in the previous verse. Verse 23 spoke about surrender, the surrender of the separate self, the surrender of personal will into the deeper movement of Spanda. Now, verse 24 describes what begins to happen when that surrender becomes real. Ordinarily, our energy is scattered. The mind moves continuously between opposites, likes and dislikes, hope and fear, success and failure, attraction and aversion. The entire life of the ego moves in duality. In the yogic tradition, this dual movement is symbolized by sun and the moon, Pingala and Ida, activity and receptivity, doing and resting, outer and inner. The mind swings between these poles throughout life. But something remarkable happens when the seeker begins to abide in Spanda, when surrender deepens, when personal struggle starts dissolving. The energy that was moving outward in countless directions begins to gather. A new centering begins. This is symbolized by entry into Sushumna, the central channel, the middle path, the path beyond duality. It is important to understand that this is not merely a physiological process. It is a transformation of consciousness. The seeker is no longer pulled endlessly between opposites. Awareness begins to rest in its own center. The sun and the moon are not destroyed. The world is not rejected. The senses are not denied. Rather, their restless movement is absorbed into deeper stillness. Just as rivers eventually merge into the ocean, the scattered energies of life begin returning to their source. This is why the verse says, they become absorbed in Sushumna. The fragmented movements of consciousness begin to reunite. The divided self begins to recover its wholeness. As the centering deepens, the yogi begins to experience life differently. The ordinary boundaries of identity becomes less rigid. The feeling of being merely a separate individual starts dissolving. The awareness that was confined to a small sense of self begins to expand. The verse uses the expression Hitva Brahmanda Gocharam, transcending the ordinary field of the universe. This does not mean physically leaving the world. It means transcending the limited way in which the world was previously experienced. The same world remains, but the experiencer is transformed. Earlier, the individual experienced life through the narrow lens of ego. Now, awareness begins to experience from much deeper center. The wave begins to remember the ocean. The reflection begins to recognize the light. The limited self begins to awaken to its infinite ground. This is why the sage repeatedly speaks of the middle path, not moving towards extreme or another, not clinging to one pole while rejecting the other, but resting in the center from which both arise. When awareness abides in that center, a profound peace emerges. Not the peace of withdrawal, not the peace of sleep, but the peace of wholeness, the peace of being established in one's own nature. And so, this verse teaches us that genuine surrender is not passive. It transforms the very movement of our energy. The scattered becomes gathered, the divided becomes unified, the restless becomes centered, and the seeker begins to enter the living current of Spanda. Om.